Midnight. The city sleeps beneath a thin sheet of rain. Inside a small apartment, a man sits hunched over a wooden desk, its surface buried beneath notebooks, highlighted pages, and underlined sentences from Think and Grow Rich. The lamp above him flickers weakly, throwing a trembling halo across the ink-stained paper. The clock on the wall ticks like a metronome of doubt, steady, unrelenting. He rubs his eyes and exhales, feeling the exhaustion not just of the body, but of the spirit that has been searching too long for something he cannot name. He's read Hill's words so many times they echo inside him like a hymn. Desire, faith, autosuggestion, imagination, persistence. These 5 pillars have built empires for others, but for him they remain blueprints without walls. Something's missing, not in the book, but between its lines. Something that isn't written but felt. The rain outside grows louder, as if trying to whisper the same truth the pages refuse to reveal. He turns another page. The familiar sentences stare back with calm confidence, yet tonight they mock him. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. But he has conceived 1,000 dreams. He has believed until belief turned brittle. Still, the results never appeared. He leans back, eyes closing, heart beating with the quiet ache of confusion. Maybe it's not about believing anymore, he murmurs. Maybe it's about something deeper. The whisper that answers him is not from the world, but from within, subtle, electric, undeniable. What if the missing law isn't about what you think, but how you command what you think? His breath catches. The word command burns in his mind like a spark landing on dry wood. He feels his pulse quicken. The books, the teachings, the endless affirmations suddenly feel incomplete, like soldiers without a general. He remembers how Hill hinted that the real secret was hidden in plain sight, known only to those who were ready to hear it. Perhaps the reason few ever found it was because they kept searching for complexity, while the truth was terrifyingly simple. The lamp flickers again. The pages blur before his tired eyes. In that blur, something strange happens. The words seem to dissolve into light, glowing faintly like living script. His consciousness drifts somewhere between thought and dream. In that silent threshold, he sees not letters but patterns of energy, each sentence vibrating like a command waiting for tone and authority. The mind, the voice whispers from the light, is not a thinker, it's a soldier, and every thought is an order. His heart pounds. He opens his eyes abruptly, half expecting someone to be in the room. But there is only him and the hum of revelation that lingers in the air. His gaze returns to the page, yet now it looks alive, as if each word carries weight beyond ink. He understands what Hill never directly stated. Thinking is not enough. Believing is not enough. Even emotion is not enough unless it is charged with command, the vibration of certainty that tells the subconscious, this is law, not suggestion. He stands slowly, as though something divine has entered the room. His body feels lighter, but the air feels dense, electric. The rain against the glass softens into silence. He walks toward the window and watches the droplets merge into rivulets of silver light. His reflection stares back tired, uncertain, but suddenly powerful. He speaks softly, testing the idea as if trying on new armor. I am done hoping. From now on, I command. The moment the words leave his lips, the air shifts. The silence grows heavier. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls, yet inside him there is only stillness. It feels as though something invisible has just saluted him, the universe acknowledging a new tone in its master's voice. He sits again, but differently now, upright, deliberate, composed. For the first time in years, he doesn't feel like a seeker. He feels like a sovereign. The words of Hill replay in his mind, but with a new resonance. Thoughts are things. Of course they are. Things shaped by will, driven by vibration, commanded into existence. He realizes that for years he's been a beggar at the gates of his own power, pleading, affirming, repeating mantras without conviction. He believed, yes, but belief without command is submission. It's like asking your reflection to smile first. The truth is inverted. Reality mirrors the authority of your tone. The subconscious doesn't respond to hope. It obeys the sound of decision. Every hesitation he's ever felt has been an invitation for delay. Every uncertainty has been a signal for stagnation. But tonight, that ends. He leans forward, picks up his pen, and writes a single sentence across a fresh page. The mind is a soldier, and I am its commander. His handwriting shakes slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that he has just crossed a line no teacher can cross for him the moment belief becomes sovereignty. He keeps writing, "From this night forward, my words are orders. My thoughts are instructions. My emotions are fuel. The world outside is my obedient reflection. The lamp steadies, its flicker gone, as if the room itself approves." He smiles faintly, feeling a quiet thrill. It's not arrogance that fills him, it's alignment. For the first time, his thoughts and emotions march in unison. He recalls how Hill once said, "When faith is blended with the vibration of thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the command and acts upon it." The word command rings louder now. Hill didn't mean prayer, he meant directive energy. When you stop wishing and start instructing reality as a commander instructs his army, the universe has no choice but to comply. He imagines his mind as a vast field of loyal soldiers, waiting only for clarity. For years, he had kept them idle with inconsistent orders, one day demanding courage, the next surrendering to fear. But now, his instructions are simple, final, absolute. Move toward purpose. Conquer distraction. Obey faith. He stands again, takes a deep breath, and closes his eyes. In that stillness, he feels the pulse of creation, the same force that moves planets and ignites stars. He understands that this force was never outside him. It lived in his words, in the tone behind his declarations, in the emotions he dared to own. He whispers once more, slower this time, with full presence, "I am done hoping. From now on I command." The sound of it fills the room like music written for the soul. The rain outside begins again, but softer now, almost rhythmic, as if applauding the moment. He feels gratitude, not for receiving something, but for remembering who he always was. He thinks of those countless people repeating affirmations that never manifest, wondering why the law of attraction seems broken. He knows now that they speak like beggars, not commanders. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It mirrors dominance wrapped in love, authority fused with faith. He writes again, "Command is faith matured. Faith without authority is a wish. Authority without faith is ego. But the union of the two is creation." That is the hidden law Hill veiled, not concealed maliciously, but protected for the few willing to rise from students to masters. The true test was never comprehension, it was conviction. The man laughs quietly, a sound of relief and realization. He finally understands that all along, the secret Hill said was scattered through every chapter wasn't a technique, but a frequency, the tone of certainty. "When belief becomes order," he mutters, "the universe becomes obedient." He feels it vibrating in his chest, the truth reshaping his entire sense of self. No longer is he someone trying to achieve success. He is success unfolding, law in motion. The pages of Think and Grow Rich now look different to him. Each word reads like an encrypted code he can suddenly decipher. Desire means directive energy. Faith means emotional certainty. Autosuggestion means command repeated until reality bows. Persistence means authority maintained. The book never hid the secret, the reader did. Outside, the first rays of dawn break through the thinning clouds. The golden light slides across the desk, touching the spine of the book that started it all. He picks it up gently, as if greeting an old friend, and whispers, "I see it now." He closes the book, but the lesson remains open within him. Every great achiever Hill studied, every story he told, every principle he described, all were expressions of this one forgotten truth. That thought must graduate from belief to command, from emotion to decree. That success is not the reward for effort alone, but for alignment between voice and vision. He sits once more, takes one last deep breath, and writes in bold letters across the page. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, but only when belief becomes order. He underlines it 3 times, not to remember it, but to declare it sealed. Then he leans back, closes his eyes, and smiles. The rain stops again, replaced by the quiet hum of a world rearranging itself to his new command. And in that silence, the silence that once held doubt but now hums with certainty, a whisper moves through his mind like wind through fire. The secret was never hidden. It was waiting for you to speak with power. Dawn rises like a soft confession. The storm of the previous night has rinsed the streets clean, leaving puddles that mirror the awakening sky. The man steps outside with the first light brushing his face. Each breath tastes new, as if the air itself has heard his midnight command and come purified. He walks toward the small park that borders his street, shoes whispering over wet pavement, heart steady with a strange calm he has never known. For the first time, he feels not like a seeker, but like a sovereign surveying his kingdom. The world seems alert now, trees trembling faintly, sparrows stitching the silence with song, distant windows glowing to life one by one as though creation waits for his next instruction. He remembers Hill's words, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." They used to sound poetic, now they sound literal. He finally understands that fate is not a mystery to be endured, it's an obedient mechanism that moves according to the tone of the one who commands it. The conscious mind is the captain giving orders, the subconscious is the crew steering the ship through invisible waters. For years he had given mixed commands, hope today, fear tomorrow, and the crew, confused, had steered him in circles. But last night something changed. His tone became final. The command had been issued with emotion so pure that doubt could not distort it. He reaches a bench at the center of the park and sits. Mist drifts above the grass like breath from the earth. The man closes his eyes. Behind his eyelids, thoughts flicker like fireflies, some bright, some fading. He studies them without judgment. "The mind," he whispers, "is an obedient servant." The sentence vibrates through him with quiet authority. He imagines his subconscious as a loyal soldier, standing at attention, waiting for orders, never questioning, only executing. How many wrong orders has he given? How many times has he spoken defeat, fear, or delay, unaware that each statement was a command written into the blueprint of his future? He sees now that every "I can't," every "maybe," every "I'll try" was a decree of limitation. The subconscious, dutiful and literal, followed precisely. It never asked if the words were wise, it simply obeyed. Like a perfect mirror, it had reflected his confusion with flawless accuracy. The realization sends a shiver through him, not of fear, but of responsibility. Power, he understands, was never missing. It was misdirected. He remembers how Hill emphasized auto-suggestion, repetition of thought until it sinks into the subconscious. But what most people never grasped, including himself until now, was that auto-suggestion isn't about repetition alone, it's about tone. The subconscious cannot interpret logic. It hears only emotion. 1,000 weak affirmations cannot outweigh a single statement spoken with absolute conviction. The mind waits for that unmistakable vibration that says, "This is final." He thinks of kings issuing decrees, short, clear, irreversible. Let it be done. That is the language the subconscious understands. Anything less is noise. He breathes deeply, letting the morning fill him, and then speaks aloud with deliberate calm. "My mind is my servant, my command is law. Today, everything aligns with my purpose." The words roll out like ripples across still water. He feels them land solid, weighty, true. Something inside him salutes. He opens his eyes and looks around. The park seems subtly altered. Colors are sharper. The air feels charged. He realizes that the change isn't in the world, but in the lens through which he perceives it. Command has adjusted the frequency of his attention. Where once he saw randomness, now he senses design. The dog passing by with its owner, the jogger nodding in greeting, the sun cresting the horizon, each appears synchronized, part of a pattern responding to his internal order. He smiles. Hill once wrote, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." Now he interprets it differently. Adversity is not punishment. It's feedback, the servant reporting that the master's last order contained uncertainty. The moment clarity returns, circumstances recalibrate. He stands and begins to walk again, slower now, like a man practicing a sacred art. With each step, he rehearses the dialogue between master and servant. Conscious mind, give order. Subconscious, obey without question. It feels almost military, yet deeply spiritual. He recalls the phrase burning desire. He used to mistake it for mere passion or craving. But he sees now that burning desire is the flame that hardens command, it consumes hesitation. To desire without burning is to wish. To desire while burning is to decide. That is why Hill demanded definiteness of purpose. The servant cannot serve two masters. Doubt is a rival king, issuing conflicting decrees. When the mind receives two opposing commands, success and fear, wealth and guilt, it obeys both halfway. producing chaos. The man vows to speak henceforth with singularity. He pauses by a fountain, its water catching the newborn sun like shards of liquid fire. He studies his reflection trembling across the surface and says quietly, "You will no longer plead, you will instruct." The reflection nods as if in agreement. He recalls all the years he spent asking the universe for help, praying for signs, waiting for permission. He sees now that the universe was never withholding anything, it was simply awaiting clarity of command. He had mistaken indecision for humility, hope for faith, and desire for action. True faith, he now understands, is the vibration of finality, the absence of contingency. To say, "I will try," is to invite failure. To say, "It is done," is to activate the law. As he walks home, he watches the city awaken, the baker rolling up his shutters, a newspaper boy tossing folded bundles, a woman opening her flower shop. Each person, knowingly or not, is giving commands through their dominant emotion. The anxious create more reasons to worry. The grateful summon more blessings. Life is impartial, mechanical, obedient. Hill called it infinite intelligence, a force that translates thought into circumstance with flawless precision. The man feels awe more than pride. He is holding a lever connected to the machinery of creation itself. He thinks of all the people repeating, "I am rich," while secretly feeling unworthy. Their servant hears only the unworthiness. Emotion overrides language. The subconscious listens not to the statement but to the state behind it. He vows to align them to speak only when he feels the truth vibrate in his bones. Back in his apartment, sunlight slants across the desk where the night before he discovered the hidden law. The air still hums faintly with that same electric stillness. He sits, straightens his back, and begins a new ritual. Eyes closed, breathing steady, he visualizes his mind as a vast hall filled with unseen workers. Each thought he speaks sends a messenger sprinting into that hall, delivering orders. Some messages have been confusing in the past, conflicting goals, unfinished commands, but today the instruction will be clear. He whispers, "Serve my highest intention, eliminate distraction, amplify focus, attract opportunity aligned with purpose." He imagines each phrase as a sealed letter delivered instantly. The hall bursts into activity. His subconscious, tireless and literal, begins rearranging unseen details of his life, connections, ideas, coincidences, all in obedience to the new decree. Hours pass. He feels lighter yet grounded. At noon, he receives a phone call from an old colleague offering collaboration on a project that had stalled months ago. The man smiles, not surprised, but quietly affirmed. The servant has begun its work. He understands now that miracles are not interruptions of natural law, they are the natural law once command is clear. What people call luck is simply the servant delivering results to those who finally spoke with certainty. He recalls Hill's reminder that faith without deeds is dead. Deeds are not just actions in the physical world, they are the inner acts of issuing and maintaining command. Every time doubt creeps in, he must restate the order. Consistency is the currency of authority. That evening, as the sun sinks behind the buildings, he returns to the park. The golden light glides over the benches, warm and forgiving. He sits again, notebook in hand, and begins to record his observations. He writes that the subconscious mind has no moral filter. It will create heaven or hell with equal enthusiasm, depending on the tone of instruction. It is not a judge, it is a generator. It takes its cue from the emotion carried by words. Fear commands protection and retreat. Faith commands expansion and flow. He underlines the sentence twice. The servant is perfect obedience, not perfect judgment. Then he adds, therefore the master must be wise. As darkness gathers, he lights a small candle and watches the flame sway. He speaks softly to it as though to his own soul. You and I, he says, will never again speak carelessly. Every word is a seed, every emotion is water, every repetition is sunlight. The flame flickers as if agreeing. He continues writing until the page fills. The law of command is the law of alignment. The moment thought and emotion say the same thing, reality rushes to comply. He sets down his pen and closes his eyes again. Inside, he feels movement, ideas aligning, fears dissolving, the servant reorganizing the palace of his subconscious. Later, lying in bed, he reflects on how many years he lived as a slave to his own servant. He had allowed untrained thoughts to issue orders in his name. Worry had commanded delay. Envy had commanded loss. Guilt had commanded self-sabotage. Yet none of it was punishment, it was obedience. The mind was innocent, merely efficient. Now, with this realization, compassion replaces regret. He whispers into the darkness, "Thank you for obeying even my confusion. From this night on, I will give you clarity." A calm warmth spreads through him, as if the servant nods in silent understanding. In his half-sleep, visions drift through his mind. Gears turning, doors opening, pathways illuminated by unseen light. He hears Hill's voice, deep and certain, echoing from the corridors of memory. The subconscious mind will translate into its physical equivalent any order given to it in a state of belief. He smiles within the dream, replying, "And belief is command clothed in emotion." The gears quicken. A new creation begins to take shape, not in the outer world yet, but in the field of vibration, where all things are first formed. When morning comes again, the man wakes before the alarm. The sky outside is clear, polished to a blue that feels infinite. He stands before the mirror, studies his reflection, and sees authority in his eyes. He knows the journey is far from over, but he also knows that the foundation has been laid. The servant is awake, attentive, loyal. Now the task is simple, to keep issuing orders worthy of obedience. He touches the glass lightly, as if blessing the reflection, and says the day's decree. "Every thought I allow serves my purpose. Every emotion I express strengthens my command. Every action I take fulfills divine order." The words feel alive. He can almost hear the machinery of life adjusting itself to accommodate them. He turns from the mirror, opens the window, and lets the fresh air flood in. The city hums below, a living testament to countless commands given and fulfilled. Somewhere, an entrepreneur decides to succeed. Elsewhere, a dreamer surrenders to doubt. Both will be right, because the servant never argues. The law is impartial, precise, perfect. The man bows his head slightly, not in worship, but in reverence for the first time. He understands the weight of his own voice. He whispers a final line, equal parts gratitude and declaration. From thought to thing, from word to world, my servant obeys. And as he steps into the morning light, certainty walks beside him like a silent bodyguard. The obedient servant follows, unseen but ever faithful, waiting only for his next command. Night returns like a tide of memory. The man sits before the same mirror where his morning command began, the lamplight low, the world outside a hush of wind through the leaves. His reflection watches him with patient eyes, as if waiting to see whether he truly understands the lesson he has uncovered. He whispers the words again, "The mind is my servant," and listens to the resonance behind them. Tonight the phrase feels heavier, denser, almost physical. He senses that thought alone is not enough. It needs heat, breath, pulse. Without emotion, a thought is a blueprint rolled up and forgotten. With emotion, it becomes a construction order sent to the universe. Napoleon Hill had written that when emotion is mixed with faith, thought gains power. But reading those words and feeling them are two different worlds. Emotion is not decoration, it is ignition. The man studies his reflection and thinks of all the times he repeated affirmations like empty prayers, his voice flat, his heart absent. The subconscious, polite but literal, obeyed the emotionless tone by doing nothing. It was never rebellion. It was simply waiting for fire. He inhales slowly, letting silence stretch. Then, without forcing it, he recalls a memory of triumph, a forgotten victory, small yet pure. The day he protected his younger brother, the day he finished a difficult task despite fear. The emotion rises from his chest like warmth. He catches it, holds it, merges it with a single sentence. "I am power." He says it once, softly, but with feeling. The air vibrates. Something inside answers not in words, but in sensation, a subtle pulse moving outward like concentric circles in water. He repeats louder, "I am power." The reflection seems to breathe with him. The vibration strengthens, expanding beyond the room, touching unseen dimensions that listen to tone more than meaning. He finally understands. Emotion is language for the invisible. The universe doesn't read vocabulary, it reads voltage. He remembers Hill's insistence that autosuggestion must be colored with emotion to penetrate the subconscious. Now he grasps why. The subconscious is not intellectual, it is musical. It hears melody, not logic. Fear has a note, faith another. Each emotion strikes a chord that reverberates through the unseen lattice of creation. He tests this realization like a scientist discovering fire. First, he speaks with indifference. I am wealthy. Nothing happens. The words fall like stones. Then he speaks with passion, gratitude, certainty. I am wealthy, and I create value that multiplies. Instantly, his body tingles. Gooseflesh runs up his arms. The emotion turns the phrase into energy. The difference is unmistakable. He laughs softly, half in awe, half in humility. All these years, he has been trying to move mountains with cold blueprints when the real power was heat. He decides to practice deliberately. He closes his eyes and begins to experiment with emotional frequencies the way a pianist tests notes. He recalls sadness not to drown in it, but to observe its tone, heavy, contracting, magnetic downward. Then he recalls joy light, expansive, outward. Gratitude feels golden, anger, red and sharp, faith, white and luminous. Each has a vibration. He realizes creation responds most strongly to gratitude and conviction. Those are the frequencies closest to divine order. Gratitude says, I already have, and conviction says, it is done. Together they form the perfect command, fulfilled and final. He understands now why Hill taught that belief must be absolute. Half belief emits static, full belief sings pure tone. The man opens his eyes, grabs his journal, and writes, emotion is the soul's amplifier. The subconscious obeys the loudest feeling, not the loudest word. He underlines it twice. Then he adds, to master emotion is to master creation. He imagines emotion as a river and thought as a boat. Only when the current flows does the boat move. Without the river, even the finest design sits stranded on dry sand. He resolves to become captain of both mind and mood. Days pass. Each morning he practices the ritual, stillness, breathing, command fused with feeling. At first the emotions come timidly like children coaxed from hiding, but soon they gather strength. He learns to summon gratitude on demand, to feel wealth before evidence, to radiate calm even in chaos. The more he practices, the more effortless it becomes. The world around him begins to echo his inner tone. Opportunities appear where there were none. People respond to his voice differently, some with respect, some with curiosity, some with the quiet recognition of magnetism. He doesn't chase, he attracts. Hill's phrase, a mind magnetized with dominating thoughts of wealth, finally makes sense. Magnetism is emotion disciplined into focus. One afternoon, he meets an old friend at a cafe. The friend complains about failure, about how affirmations don't work. The man listens patiently, smiling. He asks his friend to repeat his affirmation aloud. I want success, the friend says, shoulders slumped, voice weary. The man shakes his head gently. You're broadcasting lack, he explains. Your words say want, your emotion says don't have. The universe answers the emotion, not the grammar. The friend frowns, not yet understanding. The man leans forward, places a hand over his heart, and demonstrates, I am success expressing itself through me. He says it with quiet certainty, eyes steady. The cafe seems to hush for a moment. The friend stares, sensing the difference but unable to articulate it. Feel the tone, the man says softly. That's the command Hill never wrote outright. The friend nods slowly, eyes bright with realization. A seed has been planted. That night, the man returns home under a violet sky streaked with the last glow of sunset. He feels both exhausted and alive, like someone discovering language for the first time. He lights a candle, sets it on his desk, and writes, words are containers, emotion is content. Without content, the container is empty. Without words, emotion is chaos. The union of the two is power. He pauses, letting the truth settle. He recalls how every inventor, artist, and leader Hill studied spoke with passion that bordered on faith. Edison, Ford, Carnegie, they did not reason themselves into greatness. They felt their visions until reality had no choice but to materialize. Emotion was their compass, guiding intellect. He begins a nightly exercise. Standing before the mirror, he speaks 3 commands, each one fused with emotion until the vibration fills his body. I am clear. I am guided. I am abundant. At first it feels theatrical, but soon authenticity replaces performance. The sentences become alive, and the mirror seems to breathe back agreement. The room glows warmer, his pulse slows. He senses a feedback loop forming between him and the invisible. He sends emotion out, and emotion returns amplified, like an echo across eternity. Hence, the chapter's name reveals itself within his heart, the echo of emotion. Every feeling he sends reverberates through the universe and returns multiplied. Fear returns as problems, gratitude returns as blessings. The law is impartial yet intimate. Weeks glide by. His practice deepens into artistry. He discovers subtler nuances, excitement without attachment, confidence without arrogance, humility without weakness. Each carries a unique signature that shapes results differently. He notes how fear disguises itself as preparation, how doubt hides beneath logic, how anxiety wears the mask of realism. He catches these imposters quickly and replaces them with calm conviction. Command, he learns, does not shout, it resonates. When emotion becomes steady rather than explosive, its echo sustains longer. One evening, while meditating, he drifts into a vision. He stands in a vast cathedral made of light. Every emotion he has ever felt floats as colored spheres around him, blue for serenity, red for anger, gold for gratitude, green for love. Each time he speaks, one sphere brightens and expands, sending ripples through the cathedral. A voice calm, ancient whispers, choose wisely. What you feel becomes architecture. He bows his head, humbled. The vision fades, but the message lingers. Every emotion constructs invisible structures that tomorrow will solidify into circumstance. He wakes from meditation with tears on his cheeks, not of sadness but reverence. He finally understands that emotion is divine technology, a tool given by infinite intelligence to sculpt matter. To misuse emotion is to misuse creation itself. He resolves to guard his heart as carefully as a king guards the treasury. No careless anger, no prolonged guilt, no envy allowed to linger. Only feelings that build. Hill's line returns to him, control your own mind and you may control your destiny. Yes, control but not suppression. Mastery, not denial. Suppression traps energy. Mastery directs it. The next morning he tests this mastery in the real world. At work, a colleague challenges his idea, dismissive and sharp. The old version of himself would shrink or retaliate. Instead, he feels the first spark of irritation, acknowledges it, and immediately transmutes it into composure. He thinks, my emotion obeys me. The irritation dissolves, replaced by quiet confidence. He responds calmly, and within minutes the conversation softens. The colleague concedes. The man smiles inwardly. Proof, the servant obeys even at the emotional level. That night, journaling again, he writes, mastery of emotion is mastery of atmosphere. He realizes leaders, lovers, and creators all share one trait they set, the emotional climate of any room they enter. People unconsciously adjust to their vibration. Emotion is contagious because it is command disguised as feeling. When Hill spoke of enthusiasm as one of the major keys to success, he was describing this magnetic contagion. Enthusiasm is emotion sharpened by purpose. The man laughs softly. The hidden law keeps unfolding through layers. He remembers a passage. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. To acknowledge a limitation is to feel it into existence. If he feels trapped, he builds walls. If he feels free, he opens gates. Freedom is a vibration, not a circumstance. He stands, walks to the window, and lets the cool night air wash over him. Below, the city glitters like circuitry, each light a human thought glowing in the dark. Billions of emotions hum beneath the skyline, weaving the fabric of collective reality. He feels compassion rather than superiority. They are all commanding, he murmurs. Some know it, some don't, but the law listens equally. As midnight nears, he sits again before the mirror. The candle is nearly gone. Its flame dances low, small yet defiant. He gazes into his own eyes until the boundary between observer and reflection dissolves. You are both the speaker and the echo, he tells himself. Every feeling you emit returns home. He inhales, gathering gratitude for everything: the struggles that taught him clarity, the failures that trained his tone, the endless nights that polished his faith. Gratitude floods him so completely that his chest vibrates. The flame steadies. For a moment, the room disappears. There is only light, breath, and pulse. When he finally exhales, the world returns, quieter, cleaner. He writes one final note before sleep. Emotion is prayer in motion. To feel is to speak in the language of God. He closes the journal, extinguishes the candle, and lies down. The darkness around him hums with the echo of his gratitude. Somewhere in that invisible field, new realities begin forming: business opportunities, friendships, ideas drawn by the vibration he has released. Before sleep claims him, he smiles and whispers the nightly affirmation, rich with feeling. Whatever I feel with conviction becomes real. The words float through the air like a promise already fulfilled. And as he drifts into dreams, the echo of emotion continues to expand outward, whispering across the silent corridors of the universe, returning, as all echoes do, magnified, ready to build tomorrow in the image of tonight's feeling. The next week arrives wrapped in quiet trials, as if the universe itself wishes to test the weight of his new discovery. The man wakes to the gray light of an ordinary morning and feels a familiar heaviness tug at the edge of his confidence. An unexpected message flashes across his phone, a financial setback, a deal he trusted suddenly dissolving. For a moment, the old vibration returns: doubt, irritation, the reflex of loss. He sits at the edge of the bed, heartbeat quick, mind rushing to old scripts. But then he remembers. The servant obeys the last command. The emotion he chooses now will echo through every coming hour. He stands, steadying his breath, walks to the mirror where so many nights he practiced faith as command. His reflection meets him like an adversary waiting to see if the master still rules the servant. He whispers, I am not losing, I am learning. This is not failure, this is refinement. The words feel fragile at first, like paper in rain, but he repeats them until the rhythm hardens, until each syllable carries heat. Everything is still working for me. He feels the vibration catch, the servant receiving new orders. His shoulders loosen, the pressure in his chest eases. Outside, a thin line of sunlight breaks through the clouds, a visual echo of his internal shift. He realizes the test was never about the money, it was about tone. Would he command or collapse? He pours coffee, sits by the window, and watches the city move. The thought arrives gently. The mirror is not only glass, it is life itself. Every circumstance reflects his dominant emotion with mathematical precision. When he feels empowered, events mirror power. When he feels victimized, events mirror defeat. The mirror of command never lies, it simply copies. He recalls Hill's assertion that every thought held in the mind and mixed with emotion will soon clothe itself in physical form. Today he sees the deeper meaning. The universe is the mirror that clothes his emotions in matter. Every delay, every coincidence, every stranger's reaction is feedback, not punishment. The reflection only shows the face he wears within. He finishes his coffee, pulls on his coat, and walks toward the day like a man stepping onto a stage he secretly built himself. At the office, challenges await a project behind schedule, tension in the team. Before, he would have matched their anxiety. Now he understands he must set the emotional climate. He enters the meeting calm, voice measured. We will finish this, we always do. The words are simple, but his tone carries certainty, and certainty rearranges people. Within minutes, conversation steadies, solutions appear, laughter even dares to surface. He notices how the collective mirror brightens when his vibration stays pure. He writes later in his journal, leadership is emotional contagion governed by command. Hill called it organized effort. I call it organized vibration. The leader who can hold a steady tone amid chaos bends outcomes by resonance, not argument. Evening falls. He walks home under a sky painted with fading copper. In shop windows, he glimpses his reflection again and again, each pane a reminder, command or drift. He remembers how often he once looked into mirrors searching for flaws. Now he looks for alignment. Does this expression match my intention, he asks silently. If his eyes show worry, he corrects not the face, but the feeling. This practice becomes his daily discipline, emotional hygiene. As he aligns his inner tone, outer events align automatically. It feels almost mystical, yet perfectly logical. The servant carries orders to reality, and reality returns them embossed upon circumstance. Later that night, at his desk, he writes with deliberate slowness, "Command is faith in motion. Faith without command is silence." The phrase glows on the page like a brand. He realizes that the hidden law he uncovered is not separate from Hill's principle of applied faith, it is its evolution. Faith says it will happen. Command says it is happening. The first pleads with the unseen, the second partners with it. He closes the notebook and feels the subtle thrill of discovery. He is no longer worshiping principles, he is embodying them. The difference between the student and the master is vibration, not vocabulary. A few days later, another challenge arrives. A close friend withdraws from a joint venture, citing fear of risk. The man listens, understanding but unmoved. He feels the old sting of disappointment but does not let it mature into resentment. Instead, he speaks the command silently. "All that leaves my life makes space for greater alignment." Within hours, a new contact reaches out, offering collaboration with better terms. He laughs aloud at the speed of response. The mirror wastes no time when the signal is clear. He writes again, "Resistance is delay caused by emotional static. When the signal is clean, manifestation is instantaneous." One evening, he decides to test this law consciously. He lights a candle before the mirror and asks, "What if I issued a command so clear that reality would have to echo within hours?" He centers his breath and declares with quiet authority, "Tomorrow I will receive undeniable confirmation that the law obeys." The tone is final. He feels it land. He goes to bed without expectation, only certainty. The next day, an email arrives from a company he had applied to months earlier, inviting him to speak at a leadership event about mindset and performance. He stares at the screen, smiling. Proof again. The universe had saluted. That night, he returns to the mirror not to ask, but to thank. "You listen well," he says to his reflection, half in jest, half in reverence. He studies the man in the glass, eyes steady, shoulders relaxed, energy contained yet luminous. He senses that command is no longer an act he performs, it is becoming his natural state. Authority is turning from muscle into marrow. Still, humility remains. Power without humility collapses into pride, and pride distorts frequency. He recalls Hill's warning, "Arrogance blinds faith. True command flows through gratitude, not ego." He bows his head and murmurs, "Thank you for obeying with precision." Gratitude seals command as wax seals a decree. Over the next weeks, life begins to feel orchestrated. Challenges arrive only to reveal mastery, not misery. Each problem mirrors his inner tone with surgical accuracy. When irritation flares, traffic thickens. When patience returns, roads open. He observes these micro-reflections with fascination. The mirror of command is immediate, merciless, and miraculous. It teaches faster than any book. He writes, "Reality is my classroom. Emotion is my chalk." Every day he practices drawing better lessons. One afternoon he mentors a younger colleague drowning in anxiety. The man asks, "How do you stay calm when everything goes wrong?" He replies, "I don't wait for calm. I command it." The colleague frowns, assuming metaphor. "Command it?" The man nods. "Say I am calm, but feel it as truth, not as hope. Do that and your mind obeys." The colleague tries, awkward at first, then surprised as his breathing slows. "It feels different," he whispers. "That's because you just issued an order instead of a request," the man says. He sees realization spark in the other's eyes, the same spark that once ignited his own awakening. At home that night, he contemplates the moral dimension of command. To wield it without compassion would be to misuse divine law. Command is sacred because it shapes collective experience. It must align with harmony. Hill called it infinite intelligence for a reason. This power responds to integrity as much as to intensity. The man resolves never to command against another's good. His will must cooperate with universal order, not compete. The true master does not bend others, he harmonizes them. He spends that weekend in silence, fasting from noise, testing the purity of his commands. Without distractions, he senses how quickly stray emotions try to infiltrate. A flicker of envy here, a spark of fear there, each a potential contradiction that blurs the signal. He learns to intercept them before they form words. The discipline is exhausting yet exhilarating. He writes, "Purity of heart is clarity of command. The clearer the motive, the cleaner the mirror." Sunday evening, as twilight descends, he stands again before the mirror, candle lit. The reflection now feels almost like a companion's soul. He says, "You and I are no longer separate. You are my outer echo. I am your inner cause." The flame dances between them, symbol of the bridge between worlds. He realizes that every human life is this dialogue spirit commanding matter, matter reflecting spirit. To command wisely is to complete the circuit of creation. He feels a deep calm settle over him, the kind that needs no proof because it has become principle. He thinks of Hill one last time and imagines the author smiling somewhere beyond time, pleased that one more student has decoded the silent sentence between his lines. The man whispers, "I understand now. You taught us to think and grow rich, but the real lesson was to feel and command." The candle flame steadies as if in agreement. Outside, the wind stills. Inside, silence thickens into reverence. He turns off the light, leaving only the candle's soft glow. In the dimness, he writes the final insight of the night. The mirror obeys the face that knows itself. He closes the notebook and watches the flame until it fades into smoke. There is no doubt, no fear, no rush, only the steady heartbeat of mastery. He realizes he has crossed another threshold. He no longer practices command. He is command. The hidden law is no longer theory on a page, it is the pulse within him. When he finally lies down to rest, the city outside hums like a giant mirror reflecting his peace. He drifts into sleep with one last whisper that vibrates through the dark. The world moves because I have moved within. And somewhere in that stillness, reality nods in quiet obedience. The night feels alive, heavy with meaning. A storm coils far out on the horizon, flashing brief veins of light through distant clouds, while inside his small apartment the man sits before a candle that has already burned halfway down. The air hums with that electric stillness that always precedes revelation. He senses another layer of the hidden law waiting to unfold, something subtler than command yet born from it. He whispers, half to the flame, half to whatever intelligence listens beyond the veil, "How does the universe understand me?" The candle flickers once as if to answer. He remembers Hill's words echoing through the pages of the Law of Success. Every thought you release becomes a vibration that vibrates the ether throughout the universe, seeking like vibrations and joining with them. The line had sounded poetic years ago. Tonight it sounds technical. The universe, he realizes, does not hear words, it translates frequency. Thought wrapped in emotion becomes vibration, and vibration is the only speech creation recognizes. Every prayer, every complaint, every burst of gratitude is simply coded energy pulsing outward, searching for resonance. He closes his eyes and listens, not with ears but with skin. The room seems to hum, the refrigerator, the traffic below, his own heartbeat, all different notes in one symphony of vibration. He imagines each emotion he's ever felt radiating still, signals bouncing through the invisible field that Hill called infinite intelligence. Every fear he once indulged, every hope he ever nursed, they're all frequencies traveling without end. Suddenly the idea feels enormous. Nothing is lost. Everything he has ever felt is still alive somewhere, echoing through the fabric of existence. The realization is both terrifying and beautiful. So that's why old habits return, he thinks. Their vibrations are still circling until replaced by stronger ones. He inhales, straightens his spine, and decides to speak the language consciously. If vibration is the syntax of creation, emotion is the verb, and command is grammar. He whispers a phrase charged with gratitude. "Thank you for responding to my authority." The air thickens, goose flesh prickles his arms. He feels the phrase move outward like a ripple in a cosmic lake. At that moment, a strange certainty arrives. The ripple will return amplified. The law is perfect reciprocity. Whatever frequency you send returns multiplied. Hill's action and reaction, equal and opposite, wasn't only physics. It was metaphysics. The man smiles, the candle flame steadies. He reaches for his journal and writes in block letters, "The universe speaks vibration. Silence is not empty, it's full of replies." He underlines it, then sits back, remembering how often he tried to force life with frantic action. All that effort was like shouting English at the stars. They never disobeyed him, they simply couldn't understand. The field doesn't respond to anxiety, it echoes it. To speak to it, one must match its rhythm calm, confident, consistent. He recalls the phrase Hill used again and again, a state of mind. Success, failure, wealth, poverty, each is a state, a frequency of being. To change results, he murmurs, I must change my broadcast. He decides to test this translation. He writes 2 sentences on separate pages. On the first, I want abundance. On the second, I am abundance expressing itself. He reads the first aloud, it tastes of lack. The second hums with completion. His body feels different, as though the molecules rearranged to fit the declaration. The difference is subtle, but absolute. The universe recognizes the second as fluent speech. Want vibrates absence. I am vibrates presence. He tears the first page, throws it into the trash, and keeps the second pinned above the desk like a decree. Hours pass. Outside, rain begins to fall, soft and rhythmic, almost musical. He listens to the sound and realizes that nature itself speaks the universal language perfectly. The trees never beg for light, they open and receive. The ocean never hoards, it flows and returns. The sky never apologizes for thunder, it releases and clears. Every element obeys the law of balanced vibration, give and receive as one motion. Only humans resist with doubt. He feels humbled and inspired. To speak like the universe, he writes, I must feel as the universe feels, certain of its rhythm, unhurried in its timing. A sudden memory surfaces of the night years ago when he first read Hill's sentence about ether vibrations and dismissed it as metaphor. He smiles ruefully. You were telling me all along, he whispers to the unseen mentor. I just wasn't tuned to the frequency. He looks around the room, the candle, the shadows, the soft patter of rain, and senses presence everywhere. The entire scene feels coordinated, as if reality itself is leaning closer, listening. He says slowly, show me how you respond. Instantly, the flame bends toward him, though there's no draft. He feels a current move through his chest, neither hot nor cold, but alive. This is it, he thinks, all rising. The conversation has begun. He spends the next few days experimenting like a scientist of spirit. Each morning he sets an emotional tone, deliberately gratitude, confidence, peace, and observes the day's events. The correlation is immediate. When gratitude dominates, small miracles appear. Traffic lights turn green, strangers smile, solutions surface. When worry slips in, obstacles multiply with uncanny precision. The law doesn't punish, it mirrors. The precision amazes him. He begins noting the results. Emotion, outcome, response. After a week, his notebook looks like data from an experiment proving a universal theorem. The equation is simple. Emotion plus repetition equals materialization. One evening, he shares this discovery with a friend who laughs good-naturedly. You think the universe keeps score? The friend asks. The man smiles. It doesn't keep score. It keeps resonance. He explains how vibration attracts similarity, how emotion programs the subconscious, which then organizes coincidence. The friend listens half convinced. So it's not magic, he asks. No, the man replies. It's mathematics performed by feeling. That night, energized by the conversation, he returns home and performs his strongest command yet. Standing before the open window, he lets the city's hum merge with his heartbeat. Infinite intelligence, he says softly, translate my certainty into form. Let every thought I release carry gratitude, clarity, and precision. He feels the words depart him like sparks entering wind. Something deep within clicks into alignment. He knows without proof that the field has received the transmission. The response will arrive not by miracle, but by mechanism. He sleeps peacefully, wrapped in the rhythm of his own broadcast. Dawn filters through the curtains, pale and deliberate, as if the light itself were delivering a reply to the message he sent into the night. The man wakes before the alarm, feeling a quiet expectancy pulsing in his chest. He doesn't rush, he listens. Somewhere between the ticking of the clock and the hum of the street below, he senses a rhythm that seems to breathe with him. It's as though the world has matched his heartbeat. He smiles. So this is what dialogue feels like, he whispers. The universe answers not in words, but in arrangements, timing, symbols, sudden clarity. He understands now that guidance never shouts, it synchronizes. Every coincidence is grammar in the language of vibration. He spends the morning moving gently, like a man fluent in silence. When he opens his email, two opportunities wait projects that perfectly mirror the intentions he issued days before. There is no surprise, only recognition. He recalls Hill's line, "When you are ready for a thing, it will appear." Readiness, he realizes, is frequency alignment. The outer world had not changed. He had. The servants of circumstance had simply been waiting for the new command to reach them through the field. Later, he walks through the city, absorbing its murmured symphony horns, footsteps, laughter, wind. Each sound carries a pulse. He feels himself as part of that orchestra, no longer separate. Even the passing stranger radiates a tone. Some emit warmth, others static. He wonders how many lives collide daily through unseen resonance, how many destinies orbit one another waiting for emotional alignment. Hill's phrase, "a mastermind alliance," returns to him. It wasn't only about people with shared goals. It was about harmonized frequencies that multiply power. When two minds meet in vibration, he writes in his pocket notebook, a third mind, greater, awakens. He senses that language itself, spoken or silent, is simply a way of tuning hearts until they hum the same note. That evening, the storm returns, rolling over the rooftops like a vast drum. Lightning illuminates the room in quick flashes. He feels no fear. Instead, he listens to the thunder, as translation, the universe repeating in sound the same law he has been studying in silence. Each boom is declaration followed by echo, command followed by response. He whispers, "As above, so below." The lightning obeys the unseen electrical order, so does he. He feels kinship with the storm. Both are expressions of stored potential seeking release. He decides to test a subtler level of the language, thought without words. He sits cross-legged on the floor, closes his eyes, and lets feeling rise without sentence. Gratitude, love, confidence. He sends them outward, imagining them as light waves expanding through the storm, mixing with thunder, reaching beyond clouds into the vast ether Hill described. For several minutes there is only pulse and breath. Then, without warning, a deep calm envelops him, almost physical, pressing against his skin like invisible hands. A thought not his own whispers through the calm, "We hear you best when you stop speaking." He exhales, half laughing. Of course. The truest communication with infinite intelligence is communion, not conversation. Command begins with sound but matures into silence. He opens his eyes. The candle has not gone out despite the draft sneaking under the window. Its flame bends, steady and blue at the base. He realizes that silence is not emptiness, it is full transmission. In stillness, vibration becomes coherent. Words are useful tools, but the universe prefers pure frequency, feeling uncluttered by language. Hill's insistence on definiteness of purpose suddenly deepens. Definiteness is emotional clarity. The clearer the feeling, the faster the form. Days turn into a pattern of experiment and observation. He now treats every emotion as a dial on a transmitter. When impatience rises, he breathes until the signal stabilizes. When joy arrives, he amplifies it through gratitude. He notices that results follow the emotional weather within 48 hours, a call, an invitation, a solution. It's never random, he writes. It's correspondence in motion. He begins teaching small groups the same principle, translating Hill's language of success into vibration science. Don't fight circumstances, he tells them. Rewrite your broadcast. The universe is a perfect listener. They watch him with the mixture of skepticism and fascination that always greets truth disguised as simplicity. One night, after a seminar, a young woman approaches him. Her eyes are wet. "I tried what you said," she whispers. "I felt gratitude instead of fear, and within an hour my estranged brother called me after 2 years. The man smiles gently. "That's the law," he says. "You tuned to reconciliation, so reconciliation found you." As she walks away, he feels a surge of reverence. The language he's been learning is not for personal gain alone, it's the grammar of healing. Every heart fluent in gratitude speaks restoration into the world. Weeks later, while traveling by train, he gazes through the window at fields rolling past. golden under evening Sunday. He senses the hum beneath the rails, a steady vibration connecting towns, people, stories. Everything sings, he thinks. We just forget the melody. He recalls how Hill said thoughts are energy organized by intent. Now he knows that songs of intent travel farther than shouts of fear. He decides that his life's purpose is to teach others to remember their melody, to make them realize that each human being is an instrument of divine command, constantly broadcasting and receiving. To master vibration, he writes, is to master destiny's dialect. That night, in a small hotel room, he performs one more experiment. He closes his eyes and chooses a simple vibration piece. No words, no image, just the sensation of still water beneath sunlight. He sustains it for minutes until the boundaries of his body blur. The noise of the city outside seems to quiet, as if respecting the frequency. When he opens his eyes, he feels expanded, weightless. The clock shows an hour has passed, though it felt like moments. He understands that time, too, bends to vibration. Calm slows it, chaos fractures it. The law governs even clocks. Before sleeping, he writes the chapter's final insight in his journal. The universe is fluent in feeling. Speak to it through vibration, not vocabulary. Every thought is a note, every emotion a chord, every life a song. Sing deliberately. He closes the book, extinguishes the candle, and lies back in darkness. The storm has moved on, leaving the night washed clean. Through the open window comes the distant rhythm of the sea against the shore, as if the planet itself is breathing in perfect tempo with him. The language of the universe is not secret after all. It has always been singing. Humanity simply forgot how to listen. He smiles, letting the rhythm carry him into sleep, knowing that the field is already composing tomorrow's reply to tonight's silent command. Morning arrives without ceremony, no thunder, no revelation, just pale light spilling across the desk where his journal waits open like an unfinished conversation. The man stretches, feeling both calm and alert, aware that the next phase of mastery will not be glamour but grind. Discipline. The word itself tastes metallic, uncompromising, yet somehow sacred. He has learned that revelation is easy, repetition is divine, command without consistency collapses into wishful thinking. So he rises before dawn every day, even when sleep clings to him like fog, and begins his ritual. Breath steady, spine straight, mind silent. He closes his eyes and repeats the decree that has become the spine of his new life. I am the master of vibration. My thoughts obey my will. At first, the words feel mechanical, but then emotion stirs. Certainty enters. The phrase acquires weight. He senses the servant aligning again, machinery of mind, adjusting gears for another day of obedience. He spends the early hours writing. Not pages of goals or confessions, just sentences of precision. Hill's phrase, organized effort, echoes in him. He realizes effort must first be organized within thought before it can manifest in motion. So he arranges his intentions like soldiers on a parade ground. Each one clear, concise, measurable: study, create, teach, rest, no chaos allowed. The discipline of command begins with the discipline of language. Sloppy words breed vague realities. He remembers his old habit of exaggeration. I'm exhausted. I never get a break. Each phrase was an order. Now he speaks only what he intends to experience. I'm replenishing, he says, instead of tired. Opportunities are forming, he says, instead of unlucky. It feels unnatural at first, like walking in new shoes, but soon the fit becomes perfect. The servant responds to precision. Every word is an instrument tuning the universe. By midday, he tests his discipline in motion. A phone call brings news that the leadership event he was promised has been delayed indefinitely. Old reflexes stir frustration, doubt, but he catches them before they crystallize. He closes his eyes, breathes once, and issues correction. Delay is alignment, not denial. The tension dissolves instantly. He feels the servant obeying new instructions, redirecting energy toward unseen opportunities. A few hours later, an email arrives from another organization inviting him to speak sooner, on better terms. Proof again. Discipline is not repression, it's redirection. He smiles, whispering to himself, every thought corrected is destiny rewritten. That evening he walks through the park where his journey truly began. The trees are bare now, winter approaching, the air sharp with the smell of earth and iron. He studies the branches stripped of leaves and understands a new metaphor. Even trees rest in discipline. They withdraw energy from their crowns to strengthen roots. True growth requires intervals of stillness. He sits on the familiar bench, closes his eyes, and listens to the wind threading through branches like a teacher speaking in code. The voice inside him translates, "Consistency is communion." The universe does not negotiate with those who issue occasional orders. It aligns with those whose frequency remains stable through all weather. He writes in his small notebook, "Discipline is emotional loyalty to your own command." Days blend into a rhythm: wake, declare, act, reflect, sleep. At first, the structure feels restrictive, but then he notices its paradox. Structure breeds freedom. Within routine, his energy multiplies. He accomplishes more with less strain. Even his relationships shift. People sense his calm authority and mirror it. Discipline, he realizes, is contagious like emotion. It transmits through example. Hill had called this the habit of doing more than paid for, a principle of going the extra mile. Now he interprets it spiritually. Do more than commanded of yourself. Each morning he adds one silent challenge: hold a higher tone, stay grateful longer, refine one word further. Progress becomes quiet joy rather than noisy ambition. One afternoon, a student from his workshops visits him, desperate. "I practice the affirmations," she says, "but my mood keeps collapsing. I can't hold the vibration." He listens, remembering his own early struggles. "Then practice holding silence," he tells her. "Command is born from stillness. Build endurance there first." She frowns. "You mean meditate?" He nods. "Meditate with purpose. When your mind wanders, bring it back with tenderness, not force. That's discipline, not punishment, but persistence with compassion." She leaves calmer, and he smiles. Every teacher becomes the lesson he once begged to learn. As night descends, fatigue whispers its old song. He feels the urge to skip the evening ritual to rest early. The thought seems harmless, but another part of him recognizes the test. The law of inertia waits at every door of growth. He lights the candle anyway, sits before the mirror, and begins his declarations. At first his voice is dull, the body reluctant. He continues, knowing that consistency itself is command. Gradually, the fatigue fades, replaced by gentle strength. When he finishes, the flame steadies, and the room feels subtly brighter. He realizes discipline is not about control, it's about communion with the higher rhythm until resistance dissolves. He writes a final line before sleep. "Faith spoken once is wish, faith repeated daily is law." The following weeks blur into a quiet season of sharpening. There are no dramatic visions now, only the slow, deliberate forming of habit until thought and action move as one muscle. The man begins to notice that discipline is not only about schedule, it is about energy hygiene. Every influence, music, conversation, even posture either strengthens or weakens command. He watches his own patterns like a scientist. When he scrolls through trivial noise, his mind scatters. When he walks in silence, his focus condenses. He chooses silence more often. Hill's phrase, "controlled attention," returns to him. The power to fix the mind on one purpose until it burns a groove through reality. That groove, he realizes, is discipline carved into time. One cold morning, he trains himself to hold a single thought for 10 minutes without drift. At first, it feels impossible. The mind flits like a bird, chasing fragments of memory. But each time it strays, he brings it back gently, never punishment, always return. By the 7th minute, something clicks. The thought steadies, luminous and whole. He feels the same still pressure he once felt before the mirror, the silent agreement of infinite intelligence, acknowledging mastery. He exhales, understanding that repetition is not mechanical, it is mystical. Every act of returning is a declaration that he, not the noise, holds authority. In daily life, the results become visible. His work expands effortlessly. Clients appear, drawn by his clarity. Yet he guards humility like treasure. He knows power without purity decays. So each night he performs an audit of thought. Which emotions led, which obeyed, which words strengthened, which scattered. He corrects them on paper until the day's vibration feels clean. This ritual becomes his invisible temple. No priest, no altar, only the discipline of honesty. Self-correction, he writes, is the highest form of prayer. One evening he visits the river that splits the city in two. The water moves with quiet authority, carving stone without hurry. Watching it, he understands another layer of the law. Persistence is gentle power sustained. The river never argues with rock, it flows until the rock remembers softness. He smiles, whispering, "That is discipline, unyielding without violence." He sits until night thickens, then walks home under a sky of scattered stars. Each star seems a thought made permanent through unwavering light. They hold their vibration for millennia, he muses. That's cosmic discipline. The next day brings temptation in subtler form. An old acquaintance invites him to a venture promising quick wealth but violating his integrity. For a moment, the old hunger stirs speed. Status, but another voice within, calm and ancient, says, "Command never bargains." He declines politely. The acquaintance laughs, calling him idealistic. The man only smiles. He knows the cost of compromised vibration. A single dishonest act fractures frequency. Discipline protects power, he writes that night. Without it, authority leaks. Weeks pass. He begins to train his students, not merely in visualization, but in consistency. Power, he tells them, is rhythm sustained. He shows them how daily repetition rewires the subconscious like grooves on vinyl. At first, they resist, craving novelty. He smiles. The mind loves fireworks, the soul loves firewood. Slowly, they understand. Their eyes sharpen, their posture steadies. One by one, they begin to mirror his calm. He sees in them the same spark that once trembled in him, a spark now disciplined into flame. One night, alone again at his desk, he senses fatigue, not of body but of purpose. The question rises, what next? The answer comes quietly, deeper stillness. He closes his eyes and listens. Discipline has brought order to his days. Now it must bring silence to his nights. The voice of Hill echoes faintly. Within every adversity lies the seed of an equal or greater benefit. He understands the seed is always silence, stillness containing potential. He lets the mind rest in that fertile dark until thought dissolves completely. When he opens his eyes, the room feels vast, borderless. For a brief instant, he perceives himself from above, a figure of light seated in a circle of calm. He realizes discipline has become devotion, obedience not to routine but to rhythm itself. Before sleep, he writes the final truth of the chapter. Discipline is the bridge between command and creation. It is faith made measurable, will made musical. Those who keep the rhythm rule the rhythm. He closes the journal, extinguishes the lamp, and lies back. Outside, the city's heartbeat slows with his own. Tomorrow he will rise again before dawn, not from duty, but from harmony. The servant will wait for orders, the universe will listen for tone, and the master will speak steady, disciplined, certain. The law will answer in kind, as it always does, matching rhythm for rhythm, breath for breath. Night folds around the city like velvet, the streets hushed, the sky bruised with stars. The man sits at his desk once more, a single candle before him, its flame small yet steady, the same one that has witnessed every chapter of his transformation. The air feels charged tonight, dense with invisible movement. He senses something waiting, something listening. The candle's flame sways without wind as though stirred by a presence he cannot see. He remembers Hill's description of infinite intelligence, the unseen network of forces connecting every mind, every atom, every event. Tonight he intends not to study it, but to speak to it. He opens his journal and writes the words slowly, deliberately, "Thank you for responding to my authority." He reads them aloud, voice low, firm, reverent. A faint tremor runs through him, not fear, but recognition. For the first time, he feels the universe as personal. Not distant heaven, not abstract law, but a living consciousness that replies, the unseen correspondence. He leans back, closes his eyes, and lets the silence stretch. At first it's empty, then slowly it fills the soft hum of his heartbeat, the murmur of traffic far below, the whisper of flame. Each sound belongs to a single pulse. He realizes that communication with the infinite doesn't require sound, it requires state. Emotion is signal, faith is frequency. He recalls Hill's phrase, "Infinite intelligence will respond to any demand backed by faith." He smiles faith, yes, but not as belief in something outside. Faith as magnetic certainty, the tone of a commander speaking through gratitude. He begins to test it. He forms a question in his mind, not spoken, only felt. Show me that you hear me. The answer comes so quickly it makes him catch his breath. The candle flickers once, then steadies into a stronger flame, taller than before. Coincidence, perhaps, but he knows better. Command has become correspondence. He spends the next hour writing not instructions, but thank yous. Thank you for guiding the right people to me. Thank you for aligning the next opportunity. Thank you for keeping me calm under challenge. Each line carries emotion, each word vibration. He realizes that gratitude is the most fluent language the unseen understands. It translates instantly because it contains no lack. Gratitude presupposes completion. It tells the universe the command has already been fulfilled. In that state, time collapses. He writes faster, hand trembling slightly, until the page fills with sentences of quiet certainty. When he looks up, the air feels thick, warm, alive. He whispers, "You really are listening." The flame bows in reply. Days pass and he begins to see proof everywhere. Small things at first, a message from a lost friend, a payment arriving earlier than expected, a stranger offering help precisely when needed. None of it feels random. Each event is an echo, a response written in the world's handwriting. He recalls how Hill described the subconscious mind as the intermediary between finite man and infinite intelligence. Now he understands it literally. The subconscious is the postal system between worlds. Every thought sent with emotion becomes a letter. The universe replies through circumstance. The correspondence is constant, flawless, impartial. The challenge is not to make it happen, but to notice it happening. He trains himself to read signs the way sailors read wind. When things flow easily, it means alignment. When friction appears, it means a mixed command. There are no unanswered prayers, he writes, only letters returned for unclear handwriting. One afternoon, while walking through the crowded streets, he decides to experiment. Without words, he simply radiates appreciation to the air, to the faces passing, to the rhythm of footsteps and engines. Within minutes, the mood of the street shifts. People glance at him and smile. A vendor offers him fruit without charge. A child waves from a window. The universe mirrors his inner weather instantly. He realizes that correspondence is not limited by distance or form. It's instantaneous because all minds exist in one field. Hill called it the mastermind principle. When two or more minds harmonize, a third greater mind emerges. The man now experiences that truth every day, not only with people, but with reality itself. When his mind harmonizes with infinite intelligence, miracles become mechanics. That night he writes a letter not to a person, but to the unseen. He begins formally, like any correspondence, to infinite intelligence. He writes about his gratitude, his trust, his readiness to serve. He ends it with, "I know you always reply." He folds the page, seals it in an envelope, and places it beneath the candle. The next morning, curiosity pulls him to open it again, but he resists. Faith mails the letter and forgets, he tells himself. 2 days later, the reply arrives not as words, but as an encounter. A publisher he'd admired, but never met, sends an unexpected invitation to contribute to a book on mindset and modern philosophy. He laughs aloud. "You have quite the sense of timing," he tells the empty room. The candle lit again seems to dance in delight. The more he practices, the more direct the dialogue becomes. Thoughts arrive that are not his own quiet insights, dropped like pebbles into still water. Sometimes they come as sentences, sometimes as images. He begins to differentiate their tone from ordinary thought. Ordinary thought feels effortful, noisy. Correspondence thought arrives with calm precision, already complete. He tests this intuition repeatedly and finds it flawless. When he acts on those impulses, results unfold with impossible synchronicity. He understands now why Hill called intuition the faculty of creative imagination. It is not guessing, it is reception. Infinite intelligence, speaking in symbols, nudging its partners across dimensions. The mind, when disciplined, becomes a radio transmitting command, receiving guidance, both halves of the same divine conversation. Weeks pass. One evening, he sits at his desk and feels compelled to ask a deeper question: what is your true nature? For a long moment, nothing. Then, softly, a sentence forms inside him, neither voice nor vision, but pure knowing. We are not outside you. We are the part of you that remembers eternity. The words melt through him like light through water. He understands in that instant that infinite intelligence is not a deity separate from man. It is the awakened portion of consciousness that sees from the viewpoint of completion. To correspond with it is to correspond with one's own higher dimension. You are me, fulfilled, he whispers, eyes glistening. The candle flickers once and then stands perfectly still. He begins to teach this truth to his students. Every time you pray, every time you affirm, you are writing to yourself in higher form. The universe is your expanded self replying through experience. Some struggle to grasp it. So there's no God? One asks. He shakes his head gently. There is, but he is not elsewhere. He's the current running through your mind when you think with love, with certainty, with purpose. The correspondence is constant, you just need to open the mail. They laugh softly, some still doubtful, others move to silence. But a few he can tell, understand completely. They will carry this flame further. As his teachings spread, more synchronicities appear. People begin to write him letters of their own stories of healing, sudden opportunities, reconciliations, inexplicable peace. Each one reads like proof of the same invisible dialogue. He answers every letter personally, not with advice, but with reminders. Stay in tone. Speak with gratitude. Command as one who knows the law loves you. The correspondence grows until his desk overflows with envelopes, tangible reflections of the unseen exchange. He smiles at the symmetry. He writes to the infinite. The finite writes back. Late one night, overwhelmed with awe, he gathers every letter into a box, ties it with string, and sets it beside the candle. He sits quietly, hands folded, eyes closed. Thank you, he whispers, for teaching me that nothing I send into the world is ever lost. In that moment, the candle's flame elongates, stretching higher than ever before, a column of light steady as breath. For an instant, it illuminates the whole room in golden glow, and he feels surrounded by presence, millions of silent replies vibrating in unison. Gratitude floods him until tears spill down his cheeks. He realizes that every thought, every emotion, every act of faith has always been answered, just not always in language he could read. He writes one final line before sleep. The unseen correspondence is constant conversation between will and wonder. Speak clearly. Listen quietly. Both voices are your own. He closes the journal, extinguishes the candle, and lies back. Through the window, starlight drifts across the floor like silver ink, writing silent affirmations across the night. Somewhere beyond the limits of hearing, the universe continues to hum, replying still. Dawn breathes across the horizon like a slow revelation, washing the city in faint gold, and as the light enters the room, the man rises from his bed, not with haste, but with quiet certainty, as if some invisible ceremony is taking place inside him. For weeks, the correspondence with the unseen has grown so constant that silence itself now feels populated. He no longer wonders whether the universe hears him. He wonders only what new instructions it will deliver through his own intuition. Yet this morning is different. The air carries a clarity too sharp for comfort, the kind that precedes an initiation. He stands before the mirror, the same mirror that once reflected confusion, then command, and studies the man who gazes back. The eyes are calm, the posture regal, but behind them glows something deeper, authority that no longer needs proof. He whispers, "It's time," though he isn't sure what he means until the words echo within. You no longer speak to the universe. You speak as it. The phrase strikes him with the weight of truth. For months he has issued commands outward, but now he understands the final evolution of the hidden law. The authority he sought was never external. It was the original voice of creation remembering itself through him. He feels the shift physically, a vibration climbing his spine, expanding behind the heart until it fills the chest with heat. No fear, no ecstasy, only recognition. He is becoming what he once invoked. He walks to the window and opens it wide. The city hums below, every sound familiar yet freshly translated, horns, footsteps, a distant bell, all harmonizing with his pulse. He realizes that the external world is no longer a mirror but an extension, his consciousness spilled into form. He recalls Hill's dictum, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." Now he understands the hidden clause. The mind achieves not by petition, but by identity. To believe fully is to become the belief itself. Faith evolves into embodiment. Command evolves into presence. He whispers, "I am the law made living." and the sentence lands with such gravity that the air itself seems to pause. Authority no longer feels like power over it, feels like unity with. There is no more issuing orders. There is only resonance that causes order naturally. He spends the morning moving through simple tasks, brewing coffee, answering messages, organizing papers, but everything glows with subtle symmetry. When he reaches for a book, it opens to the exact passage he needed. When he thinks of a friend, that friend writes within minutes. The alignment has become continuous. He feels like a conductor who finally realizes the orchestra was inside him all along. Each thought is a musician awaiting his cue. Each emotion, a note that adjusts the symphony of reality. He begins to see why true masters appear serene. They no longer perform miracles. They live in perpetual correspondence with the mechanism that produces them. Discipline has transmuted into instinct. Faith no longer requires repetition because certainty has replaced effort. He writes in his journal, "Authority is the natural state of the aligned mind. Struggle is its temporary amnesia." At noon, he walks through the park that once served as his classroom of awakening. Winter sunlight falls through bare branches, tracing delicate patterns on the path. The bench where he first discovered command waits empty, rimed with frost. He sits, runs a gloved hand over the cold wood, and smiles. "You taught me obedience," he murmurs, speaking to his former self. "Now I learn sovereignty." He realizes that sovereignty is not isolation. It is the maturity of connection, the servant and the master, the seen and unseen, the cause and effect. They were never separate players, but one organism learning to speak to itself through contrast. Every doubt, every setback, every test was the law training him in its own dialect. He laughs softly, breath turning to mist. Even pain was correspondence misunderstood. Hill's voice seems to drift through the crisp air. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. He nods. "You were right. The seed was authority, waiting for faith to grow strong enough to handle it." As he walks home, something extraordinary happens. People glance at him as they pass, their expressions shifting subtly, first curiosity, then calm, then quiet smiles. Children stop crying, dogs cease barking. He realizes they are responding to frequency, not face. Authority radiates without announcement. It is not dominance, it is coherence. He feels no pride, only gratitude. To embody law is to serve it through presence. He writes later, "The highest form of leadership is silent vibration that stabilizes others." That evening, he receives a letter from one of his early students, the young woman who once struggled to hold her vibration. Her words tremble with joy. She has found clarity, healed her relationships, begun teaching others. "Something in your voice stayed in my mind," she writes. "It reminded me I could command calm even when I felt chaos." The man reads the letter slowly, eyes moist. This is how the law multiplies through resonance shared, not instruction imposed. Authority is contagious in the same way fear is, but infinitely more constructive. He sets the letter beside the candle and whispers, "Well done," not only to her, but to the law itself, which has now learned to speak through many mouths. As night deepens, he feels compelled to perform one final ritual. He extinguishes every light except the candle, places both hands on the desk, and closes his eyes. "If I am truly one with infinite intelligence," he says inwardly, "then let me feel it." For a long moment, nothing moves. Then the boundaries between breath and air dissolve. The hum of the city fades. The beat of his heart merges with a deeper rhythm pulsing everywhere at once. His consciousness expands outward, encompassing street, sky, planet, stars, each one alive, each one whispering the same phrase in infinite languages, "I am." The realization is total. Every form, every face, every frequency is the law expressing itself. He is not experiencing divinity. He is witnessing its perspective. There is no hierarchy, no separation, only gradients of awareness within one living mind. Tears stream down his cheeks. He doesn't wipe them. They belong to the joy of recognition. When at last he opens his eyes, the candle's flame seems brighter though untouched. Its light paints the walls with gold. "So this is inner authority," he murmurs. Not control, but communion. In the days that follow, he no longer seeks signs. The need for proof dissolves because experience itself has become confirmation. Whether success or setback arrives, he meets both with the same tone. Gratitude. Gratitude is no longer practice, it is personality. Even challenges now feel like instructions delivered in disguise. When an obstacle appears, he asks, "What vibration does this require from me?" and adjusts accordingly. Problems resolve with mathematical precision. Hill's principle of applied faith now breathes through every moment of his day. He sees that applied faith and inner authority are the same current viewed from different angles. Faith is the current moving upward through trust. Authority is the same current flowing downward through creation. Together they form the complete circuit of manifestation. Weeks pass, and he notices time behaving differently. Events arrive before effort. Ideas precede requests. The line between thought and thing dissolves until cause and effect merge into simultaneity. He realizes that when alignment is perfect, lag disappears. Creation happens at the speed of decision. This is what Hill meant by the sixth sense, not a mysterious gift, but a natural faculty awakened when faith and discipline synchronize. The man begins to live entirely from intuition, yet his actions are more precise than ever. He no longer plans, he perceives. Each day unfolds like a page already written, his only task to read it with joy. One evening, walking along the river, he pauses on the bridge and looks down at the reflection of city lights trembling on the water. For a moment, he sees himself there, multiplied across ripples, one face, infinite copies. "So that's us?" he whispers. The one law wearing 1,000 disguises. He feels neither small nor large, only whole. The desire to teach, to lead, to prove all quiets. There is nothing left to defend, because there is nothing left to doubt. Authority has matured into peace. He understands now why sages could smile through storms. They were not indifferent, they were inclusive. To include all is to fear nothing. Back home, he opens his journal for what he senses will be the final entry of this cycle. He writes without pause, each sentence a pulse. Authority is born when faith forgets hierarchy. The universe is not a throne above you, it is a field within you. To command from that field is not arrogance, it is remembrance. The pen stops moving. He looks at the page, then at the candle still burning faithfully beside it. He feels a wave of gratitude so pure it silences every thought. He whispers, "Thank you for teaching me my own voice." The flame leans slightly forward as if bowing. Outside, the wind stills, the city quiets, and time itself seems to pause to witness the coronation of a soul who has remembered his divinity. The birth of inner authority is complete, not a crown placed upon the head, but a light unveiled within the heart. He closes the journal, extinguishes the flame, and stands in darkness that no longer feels empty. It glows faintly from within him. For a long while he simply breathes, feeling the law breathing back. No more lessons, no more seeking, only the steady rhythm of being the same rhythm that moves planets, waves, and words alike. He smiles, the quiet smile of mastery, and whispers the creed that has carried him across the journey. "I command not the world, but the vibration from which worlds arise." Then he walks to the window, gazes at the sleeping city, and nods gently to the unseen stars. The conversation is complete. The law and the man speak now with one voice. Midnight again. Yet the hour no longer feels like darkness, it feels like origin. The room stands still except for the soft rhythm of breathing, the faint gleam of city lights beyond the window, and the quiet heartbeat of a man who has crossed the last threshold of understanding. The lamp burns low on the desk where everything began. The same journal filled with prayers that became commands, commands that became correspondence, correspondence that became communion. He touches its worn cover with reverence, knowing that no word inside is mere ink anymore. Each line has become law made visible. The journey has curved back upon itself like a perfect circle, and he now understands that circles are not loops, but seals, symbols of completion. He whispers, "There is no more secret." And the silence answers with a pulse of calm energy, as if the universe itself exhales through him. Every mystery Hill ever hinted at, every fragment of wisdom scattered across the pages of his books, now fuses into one blazing realization. I and the law are one. The hidden law was never hidden. It was simply too close to see. What he had called the mind, the universe had called itself. What he had called desire was divine intention flowing through human will. There has never been separation, only the illusion of echo. He rises from the chair and walks slowly through the apartment. The smallest details glimmer with intimacy. The curve of the cup on the table, the shadow of the curtain against the wall, even the dust particles dancing in the air like tiny galaxies. Everything breathes with the same rhythm. He remembers Hill's phrase, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." Tonight he sees the unspoken continuation, because you and fate are made of the same current. He moves to the window, opens it, and the city's cool breath enters. The streets below shimmer under streetlights. Cars flow like veins carrying light through the body of existence. He whispers, "I command nothing now, I align." And in that alignment lies absolute power. For years he thought mastery meant control. Now he knows it means coherence, the silent knowing that what moves him moves everything. The candle on his desk flickers as if aware that the story nears its close. He walks back to it, sits, and lets his mind travel backward through memory. He sees himself as he once was, hunched over pages, hungry, desperate to unlock the formula of success. Then he sees the man of discipline, the student of command, the initiate of correspondence, and finally the embodiment of authority. Each version was necessary, each one an instrument through which the symphony of the law played its variations. Now the melody resolves. He no longer studies vibration. He is vibration aware of itself. Thought, emotion, and action, once separate instruments, now hum in perfect chord. He smiles softly, recognizing that enlightenment is not a new light entering, but an old light remembered. The wind rises outside, whispering against the glass like an unseen narrator closing a final scene. He thinks of the countless people still searching, reading, hoping to find what was always written within them. They are all letters, he murmurs, waiting to be read by their own eyes. Compassion, vast and tender, fills him. He understands now why the masters teach rather than preach. The law cannot be given, it must be recognized. To tell another soul that they already possess the power is to hand them a mirror instead of a map. He vows to become that mirror for others, not a guru, but a reminder. Hill's principle of service suddenly unfolds in new dimension. Render more value than you receive, not only through work, but through presence. Every act performed from remembrance becomes sacred service. He closes his eyes and lets gratitude flood him until it feels too large for the body. The sensation expands, dissolving boundaries between skin and air, between thought and sky. For a timeless instant, he feels himself everywhere inside the wind, the hum of electricity, the quiet hearts of strangers sleeping across the city. The same pulse beats in all of it. He whispers from within that vastness, "Thank you." And in response, the night whispers back in infinite voices, "Thank you." The dialogue between human and divine has become duet, the singer and the song indistinguishable. There is no prayer left to say because existence itself has become the prayer. He opens his eyes and begins to write one last time. The words arrive without thought. The law is not learned, it awakens. To live it is to remember you were never powerless. The universe is not granting wishes, it is echoing identity. You are the cause, pretending to be the effect until you decide to remember. He sets down the pen, feeling a serene finality. Nothing more needs to be written, the rest will be lived. He looks around the room, now brightened by the first hint of dawn seeping through the window. The blue of early morning merges with the amber of the candlelight, creating a color that seems to exist nowhere, but in this moment a hue of completion. He stands, stretches his hands toward the light, and feels energy surge through him like sunrise coursing through veins. Every cell hums with recognition. He realizes the true purpose of command was never to shape external circumstances, but to sculpt consciousness until it reflects the pattern of creation itself. When that reflection is perfect, external circumstances must obey, for they are only projections of that inner geometry. The law becomes him not by possession, but by permission. It was always seeking embodiment, and now it has found one. He laughs quietly, almost in disbelief at the simplicity of it all. So this is it, he says. This is what all the prophets, inventors, and dreamers discovered, the same current under different names. Electricity, spirit, will, vibration. It is one motion wearing countless masks. Outside, the city awakens. The first train rumbles through the distance like a heartbeat returning to the world. He watches sunlight creep across rooftops, gilding edges of glass and steel. Each reflection catches another, multiplying brightness until it looks as if the city itself is remembering its own divinity. He feels part of that awakening, one consciousness stretching through millions of minds, each moment a neuron in the infinite brain of God. "We're all commands," he whispers, "learning to speak as one." The line feels like prophecy, yet also completion. There is nowhere left to climb, nothing left to prove. The mountain of mastery ends where humility begins. He turns back toward the desk and blows out the candle. Smoke spirals upward, curling into the light, a final signature written across the air. For a moment he watches it disperse, symbol of all that once seemed solid, now returning to source. The room smells faintly of wax and realization. He takes one last deep breath, sensing that even breath is an exchange of command and response, inhale receiving, exhale creating. When he steps away from the desk, he carries no weight, no questions, only quiet. In this stillness, he feels the world rearranging, not because he orders it, but because he is it. The master and the law have become indistinguishable expressions of the same awareness, two sides of one pulse called existence. He walks to the window, the very place where his journey of command began, and watches the horizon blaze fully open. The sun lifts, spilling gold over everything, turning buildings into mirrors, sky into molten promise. He smiles faintly and speaks the final sentence of his life's lesson, the one Hill whispered through decades of ink. "The law is not outside to be obeyed, it is inside to be remembered." The words hang in the air like sunrise turned to sound. He closes his eyes, and for a moment there is no separation between breath and dawn. The hidden law that once seemed distant has completed its circle. It breathes through him now, endlessly creating, endlessly reflecting. The man opens his eyes, and the world opens with him, one thought, one power, one presence. The law has become him, and through him it becomes the world.